Welcome to the Black Doctor Collective podcast. We as Black doctors are in a unique position. We can change our communities, healthcare, and the world. Of course, we start by changing the way we see and value ourselves. I'm your host, Dr. Shanika Horn, pediatrician and physician coach, travel extraordinaire. I am so happy to have you here and listening. So let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to an episode of the Black Doctor Collective podcast. This is definitely a different type of episode, and you'll probably notice that it's a bit longer because I am giving you free access to a webinar I just taught recently about why negotiation is the only tool you'll need. So if you ever felt underpaid, overworked, you know the story, unsure of how to get what you want, I'm talking to you about how negotiation is that girl, okay? She's that girl, okay? So assess your current situation. Let's figure out if this is the tool for you. Whether you're new to this or true to this, go ahead, sit back. Or if you're in the car, turn it up while you're driving to clinic. Let's go. Enjoy. My first question for you guys is, what is something you want to change about your job? And maybe you said it out loud, but maybe you haven't. There's just like one thing that you're like, I would love to change this thing.
Decrease my hours.
I hear that. That's like my favorite language. Talk to me about part-time. Decrease my responsibility. Yeah. Sometimes the workload is too much. Less administrative burden. Yeah. More pay. We always like a little more pay, you know? Do less, earn more freedom, all of it above. So the reason I have you guys come to this is we want to talk about the career that you actually want. But there's some core things that I want you to walk away with, and that is why doctors avoid asking for what they want and how it's keeping you guys exhausted. So you're already telling me, right? You already feel like you have too many responsibilities. You have a lot of administrative burden. You're working too many days. So that's part of the keeping you exhausted component. I'm going to talk to you about the internal conversations that we're having before we even have the external conversation. And I'm going to share with you some stories from clients that I have about what they were able to do when they negotiated. And then once we're at the end of it, we're going to talk a little bit about my program because that's also part of what to do. So the concept that I want you guys to believe by the end of this webinar is that negotiation is the simplest way to change your work and your life. And sometimes that feels a little like, I'm sorry, that's the simplest way, right? So I would love to know, do you believe this or not yet? There's a lot of buts. There's a lot of caveats, right? It's like, if you can get what you ask for, maybe, but kind of, sort of. And I think that is, again, why we don't negotiate. We can see this for the tool that it is, the helpful strategy that it is, but we ourselves are often unsure, like, am I able to do this? How do I do this? Can I get what I want if I ask? And I think a lot of us, our worst case scenarios, like we're going to try something and fail at it. So here's some of the fears, right? We don't necessarily always fear just asking the question. In our mind, we're like, yeah, I would love to be able to ask for this thing. But we do fear the potential result. Like, maybe they're going to deny me. The most common one I hear is like, they're going to rescind the whole job, the job offer, they're going to snatch it all away. I'm not going to have anything at the end of this conversation. They're going to think I'm too much, that they don't want to work with me. And then we and ourselves have fears that maybe we're not enough, or like, who am I to ask for all of these things? Maybe I need more credentials, more experience, more years of work. Like, we have all these lists of why we are not enough in asking for the things that we really want. For like, these other people at my job had been here for years and they don't have the thing that I'm asking for. So I find we have a lot of internal conversation. We worry about the timing, and I'm going to talk to you guys about timing and why we can work around that. And then sometimes we just don't believe that what we want exists. We call it a dream, but we don't actually believe in the dream. were like, this sounds like a fairy tale. Like in the ideal world, I would love to have this, but, right? Like there's a lack of belief in what we want and whether or not someone's going to want to give it to us. I think we have this whole internal conversation about what's possible. And of course, we talk to ourselves in the way that saying that it's not possible or it may not happen or something bad will happen as a result of us asking. And in actuality, most negotiations don't actually lead to conflict, right? We have worst case scenarios in our brain, and that internal conversation is the thing that keeps us from asking for what it is we actually want. So I'll just tell you guys a little bit about me. I'm a pediatrician. I trained in global health. I did a global health fellowship, and I coach for Black doctors who are done settling. My story is that I went through training and I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I didn't know what I wanted to do because what I saw, like from my attendings while I was in training, was not the prize that I was hoping for. They looked stressed and overworked. And as a resident being stressed and overworked, I was like, that's not the light at the end of the tunnel that I'm looking for. So I ended up doing a global health fellowship because I thought, well, let me see what other options are out there. Maybe I can find a different way to practice. Maybe I can look at other healthcare systems. Like I was throwing spaghetti at the wall. I'm like, I need something else. This does not work for me. Because I was already burning out. And they always try to tell you, I feel like the collective they, the older attendings have this notion of like, you have to suffer through and it's all worth it. So you minimize a lot of what you're asking for or what you desire because you think like I just have to earn my dues or this is just how it is. And so you push yourself. My mentality was I can get through anything for a finite period of time. So I'm like, okay, well, I could push through, I can push through, but at some point I was just pushing and I felt super burnt out. By the time I got to the end of fellowship, I was like, okay, well, this is not a fellowship in a specialty per se. So basically, I'm still a general pediatrician. And I didn't like what general pediatricians, like what I had seen modeled. I didn't like it. And so I decided to not apply for a job at all. I came back from my global health fellowship. I was in Liberia at the time. I had to go through a Zoom graduation because, of course, this is the height of COVID. I'm sitting at my computer for my Zoom graduation, and they're going down the list of all the graduates and what they're going to do next. Like what fantastic job they got, what institution they're affiliated with. And they're going to get to me, and I have to say, like, I don't have a job, nor did I really apply for jobs because I just could not see myself signing a 3-year contract for a job I really didn't want. Now, I was also Brooks.com, so it just didn't feel like the most logical thing to admit to. But I don't remember what I said on that Zoom call. Just like I'm talking to y'all now, I sat on the computer in Liberia and I like smiled and I got through my moment and I graduated. I did everything I needed to do to come home. And thankfully, I said, I live in New York. Like my mom owns a house in New York. It's a multi-family home. So I was able to move back into a house. I had a place to be. And I really spent some time just trying to think about what I wanted to do, what that job would even look like if I had to go back into medicine, where I didn't feel overworked, underpaid, like I was a cog in the wheel. I was just doing a lot of, like, I was a pencil pusher. Like, I was just pushing paperwork, prior authorizations, and all the things. I'm like, what does that even look like? So I decided, because again, student loans, you need income. I'm not rich, right? Like, I need something. I decided to do a locums position. And in the locums position, you're talking to recruiters and they're asking you what you want, which is not something I think I had conversations about prior, but I had thought a great deal about it while I was sitting at home. And it was like, okay, I would like to have a job where I don't work nights, I don't work 24-hour shifts, don't work weekends. And that's just like what I needed to be. And that's what I told the recruiter. And it was really out of necessity that I came to this first negotiation. And I was like, well, I'm already out of a job. So it was like worst case scenario for me. And that's not where I want you guys to negotiate from, right? We want to get to you. We want you to learn negotiation before you get to that point of like, I got nothing left. If I have to absolutely do something for income, this is the way that I am going to go about it. So, in my mind, a similar thought I see with a lot of physicians is like, I just have to quit. I have to quit everything. I have to walk away. Like, I can't create what I want in a job. But just in realizing the things that were going to help me preserve were taking control of my schedule, how much time I was at the job, that first negotiation and putting it in writing, that's actually what allowed me to return to medicine. And it's actually what allows me to stay in medicine today is that first negotiation of figuring out like what it is I need, how to communicate that, and how to stick by that. Because you know it comes up again, right? Like you might sign a contract and then you get to work and they're asking you to do all kinds of little ancillary tasks. So I think the misconception that I had was that I had to leave medicine. I had to really quit before I could fix anything. And that's actually not true. So for many of you who are either already in a job, maybe it's not so bad that you want to quit yet. But for some of us, you know, we're at the brink, want to quit or move on or whatever. It's really about being able to assess exactly what you need and communicate that. So a little bit about what we were talking about is that before you negotiate out loud, you have to negotiate internally. And that's all about this conversation I had to have with myself to convince myself that what I was asking for wasn't crazy. Like, what doctor do you know straight out of training is like, no nights, no weekends, no 24s. I'm working a 4-day work week, like all of the means, right? And it required this conversation about what it was I actually needed, what I could have. I didn't know if it existed, right? But at that point, I was so burnt out, I was just like again, just throwing spaghetti at the wall. But what I've come to learn over negotiating many contracts with other doctors is that you really only have two choices when it comes to these kinds of decisions. You could either choose your comfort right now. So let's say the conversation is what you want to have, but that makes you so uncomfortable. So instead you're like, you know what? It's too uncomfortable for me to say something. I'm going to choose the comfort of this current moment, which means that you stay quiet, you do what you think keeps the peace, you go along to get along, you try not to ruffle feathers, and that feels like the decision in the moment, but then that leads to long term discomfort because you've now decided I'm not going to say anything and I'm not going to present what I really want. And that means for the long term, you're in a place or in a job where you're doing more than you want to do, you're working more than you want to work. The hours are not your choice, the tasks are not under your control. So the other choice, which is the one that I want you to choose, is the freedom later. It means that you have to take the risk of asking, even though your mind is telling you this is like the worst decision. You might experience some short-term discomfort, but the freedom later is that you're literally working to create this future that you actually want for yourself. I want to share with you a story about a client that I have. I'll call her Dr. R. I actually met with her today, funny enough. And her story was that she came to me because she wanted to figure out an escape plan for down the line. She was in a job contract, first contract out of her OBGYN residency program. It was her first attending position. She was working way more than she really wanted to. She felt the conditions were a little bit dangerous, like the patient load was heavier than she needed it to be to practice safely. The calls were longer than they should have been. They were asking her to stay after, like post call. There was just a lot of small violations of what would have made the job safe and a happy place for her to be. So she was burning out and also just feeling like underappreciated, frustrated. And so she looked at her job contract, and I think it was a 2-year contract at the time. And she's like, well, I can't leave before the 2 years, but I would love to, join this program and figure out my escape plan. Like once that 2-year contract is over, what do I need to do to set up the next job? And in actuality, part of my process that I coach the clients on is evaluating your scenario now and figuring out, does something need to change within the job itself to make you happier or to relieve the load of the things that are burdening you? Or do you need to get out? And so we do this assessment, have a dream framework where we talk about all the things that would make this job the dream or what is the dream job. And we are able to look also at the contract. I do a contract evaluation. Is it true that you can't leave your job before the contract ends? Most of the times it's actually not true. So, based on the contract review process and the dream framework, we went through it, and by the following week, she had already turned in her resignation. Like she was so relieved that she could get out of this position. And then she was like, okay, I'm ready to negotiate, right? I'm ready to negotiate for a new position that gives me the things that I desire. We used the framework of like, this is what you need to do. You need to ask questions, you need to make decisions, right? I call it an ADA cycle. Ask, decide, ask. So we went through the ADA cycle and ended up getting her a totally different OBGYN position where the workload was way lighter. She was working 2 weeks out of the month and making more than she was earning in her full-time post residency position. So there's options for you that you can't even imagine sometimes. And that's the beauty of working with a coach, for example. But you get to know and you get to have these conversations where you're figuring out like, these are all the options for me specifically. This is what's possible. Here's what other doctors are doing to see exactly what is available to you. You understand that what you're asking for is not unreasonable and that it's always the right time to negotiate. I have other clients as well who are in contracts who have convinced themselves that they just need to ride it out. They just need to get to the end of the contract. And for the most part, that's not true. So, yeah, the time is always right. I say, like, it's just a realization that you don't need perfect timing to negotiate. You just need to decide that what is happening is not for you. So you don't need more time. You literally just need better questions. What does it take to get out of my current situation? And so I think for a lot of physicians, especially now with the political climate and the way that medicine is changing, we're really starting to question the structure and the rules, the idea that you have to put in dues. You already put in dues, you went through training, you went through medical school, you front loaded the time and the cost, and now you got to this place as an attending. The time for earning dues is over. It's time now to actually start requesting the thing that you desire. So a lot of you guys feel like maybe you want more, but you're unsure how to ask for it or even what's reasonable. Or sometimes you've convinced yourself that you need to prove yourself, or that if they see all the work that you're doing, how hard you've been working, how many extra shifts you've been willing to pick up, how much of a team player you are, that they will praise you and hopefully pay you. But honestly, most places don't just give out raises, right? So you really do have to ask. Okay. Dr. M has a story where she was coming out of her fellowship and she's family med. She did a fellowship in geriatrics, and she came to me with the guise of like, hey, I just need help with this first contract I'm having. And she brought this contract for what she felt like was her dream institution. It's a big university, it's prestigious, and it's back in her home state. She was living across country at the time. So she felt like, okay, this is the dream job. Like, because of the reputation of the institution, like, I should really want to work here. I'm so glad, I'm honored that they offered me something. So I just want to, like, look through it and make sure that I'm signing the right thing, that this looks good. And again, we instituted the dream framework. And when we did the dream framework, it was revealed that actually this is not her dream job. Like, she wanted to go part-time. Like, she wanted to specifically have a clinic focused on geriatrics, which this place was not offering to her. She wanted to earn more money, right? She had an amount in her mind that she wanted to earn, but she didn't know if that was a reasonable salary. She also, as a Black physician, wanted to work in a community that looked like her. And that was her initial mission of getting into medicine, was to be in a community, serve the community that built her up, that allowed her to thrive, where her people are from. And this dream job was only a dream job because, in academia, certain institutions just carry heavy weight. Mind you, she was coming out of like Harvard. I'm like, okay, you're in this academic world and you feel like I need to go to an equally prestigious location. And because of their reputation, she felt like, I don't know, can I ask for these things? Is that even possible? Is what I want even in existence? Don't I have to choose this option? And again, based on this dream framework, we looked at all of the reasons why this is not her dream job. And then we used a framework that I use with clients to increase your offers. So if you have one job offer, even if you're in a current job, I always say, look at the market. What is out there? What are jobs offering? Who's paying what for what tasks, what responsibility, what schedule? And so we did that and we were able to have her apply to several more jobs. She ended up with like seven more offers, including an offer also in her home state, in a community that felt really like home to her, with the exact salary that she had envisioned in her mind, which was $70,000 more than her dream institution was offering. Plus, we negotiated a sign on bonus and some other things. So, the point of it is she had to believe that negotiation was the thing that was going to get her to her goal. She had to, I mean, obviously, like I said, I'm asking you guys to believe it, and I'd probably ask you guys to borrow my belief in it because I know it to be true. So sometimes you guys just have to rely on that. But the concept is if you negotiate, if you're willing to ask, you'll be so pleasantly surprised at all of the things that you would be able to get. And so she ended up getting this fantastic job that she's in right now. She's now doing some community programs. They're giving her funding to do some community outreach programs that she really wanted to do. They're giving her geriatrics clinic, dedicated time just for her fellowship specialty. So she doesn't just have to cover all the family medicine stuff. And these are kinds of things that people are getting when they are negotiating. Instead of having this conversation where you're like, am I allowed to do this? Am I allowed to only practice geriatrics? Am I allowed to go part time? Am I allowed to reduce the tasks that people are asking me to do? They're starting to ask, like, is this job presenting me with enough of the options that I want? Does this job reflect my values? Is this job enough? Not am I enough and am I doing enough, but is the job enough? And so the transformation really does begin with this internal conversation that you're having. It's about belief. It's not about confidence. It's my favorite one. Everyone wants to be a confident negotiator. But think about how you became a confident physician. It wasn't that you became confident and then you became the physician. It's that you showed up, you risked it all every day. You decided, I'm going to show up every day. I'm going to learn a little bit more. I'm going to try to do better. I'm going to improve. And you do that over time. And then you become the confident person that you are today, right? There's certain things that you know, like the back of your hand, that are just easy for you. They're the bread and butter of your field. And you feel good about those things. That didn't come before the confidence. So none of my clients, we're not allowed to wait for confidence. We're waiting for just the conviction, the decision to be made. And it goes back to that like ask decision cycle. Like I'm asking them all the time, what is it that you want? And then we make a decision based on that. So even for me, I talk about all of these concepts. Like, is what I want even in existence? Is this the right time? Can I get what I want without quitting? I have all of the same questions, but because I have a process, I'm able to create things all the time. So, where I left you off in my story was that I started locums with this contract of like 4 days a week, no nights, no weekends, no 24-hour shifts. And that was like my first job out of fellowship. Where I am now is like a totally different place. And because once you start negotiating, it's kind of addicting. It's hard to stop. Eventually, I went through a couple different locums positions over the years, and I changed jobs every time I felt like something wasn't working for me. And each contract, I got better and better at negotiating. And so where I am now, I've been in the clinic I'm in now. I approached that clinic as a 1099 because I was working 1099 as locums. I thought the benefits were better for me to continue to be this 1099 employee. So I decided I'm going to get a per diem job at a local clinic so I don't have to do all this travel for locums. Although I did some local assignments, but I was like, I just want to get in someplace. Let's work per diem. Let's arrange the schedule. I went in there. I created that position based on my dream framework, the idea of deciding what I wanted, being able to ask for it. And they were open to hiring. It wasn't, they didn't even have the job posted, but they were open to hiring. And I told them that I only want to work 3 days a week. And I didn't want to do weekends, nights, 24s. And they accepted that. But at this point, I was already pretty good at how I approach negotiation, how I ask the questions. They accepted that. And then at some point during the year, I thought, this is not really working for me. And you would think, right? Like you already have the great schedule and the tasks, but there's always something, right? Clinics are very complex. It's not just about money, it's not just about time. Sometimes it's about the way you practice. And I was not always loving the way that the practice was operating, what their standards were not my standards. And so again, I went through this thought process of like, it's probably better that I just quit. I just think I should maybe quit. Instead, I leaned into the framework of, okay, let me approach them and share with them what I'm desiring. And so I went to the owners of the practice, it's a private clinic, and I told them, this is where I am in the job, but actually, this is where I want to be. This is what I think we should be doing better. Gave them like true, honest feedback. And at that point, also, I was willing to walk away, right? I was willing to walk because I'd already decided that maybe the better option was to quit. So I was already willing to walk away. But I decided, let me go to them first. Maybe I can use my own steps and shift the culture of how I work, how I show up there. And based on that conversation, I was able to I got offered a role to lead the change. So we decided that that role was medical director. So as a 1099 employee part time, I'm now their medical director. I do clinic 2 days a week and one admin day. I make $100 more an hour than I was making as their general pediatrician. And I work 3 days a week. So I worked less, like less clinically, and I make double what I was making before. And that is really about this process of like negotiation is literally the tool. If you just simplify it to it is just asking someone for something that you want, and then you move from there, it is literally the tool that you can use to create all of these possibilities, all of these jobs. You've heard my story, you've heard Dr. M's story, you've heard Dr. R's story. All of these clients have been able to literally create these dream positions. And even when it's the dream, you can still amend it. You can still adjust it. You can still tweak it to what you need it to be as you learn what the job entails and as you learn what you desire, what you want to make more time for. I think everyone on this call is probably deciding what things they want, and the things you wanted 5 years ago are not the things you want today. And so you need to make time for that. In the comments that that's inspiring. Yeah, but it's not just meant to be inspiring, right? I want it to be like, thank you, yes. And I want you to see that this is also possible for all of us. The reason why this is particularly important to me is that as a Black physician, like we're what, 5% of the entire physician population. And as a female physician, we're like 2%, right? Black women physicians are 2% of the doctor population. And so I felt like, the reason a lot of us get into this job is altruism. Like we have these altruistic natures. We want to serve our communities. We want to give back. We want to do all these things. We want to serve people in a particular way. We want to be helpful. And so if we don't get to do that because our job conditions are not right, a lot of us leave. I'm sure y'all are in the on the social media and the Facebook groups where everyone's complaining and trying to get into all kinds of other alternate side careers. There's like a whole side hustle group. There's a group about utilization management, like working for insurance companies, because people cannot figure out how to negotiate what they want in the current job. So they figure, again, like me, like I just need to leave, I just need to quit. And that's not true. And I want people to see that that's not true because I want people to stay in medicine. I do a lot of work on this pipeline into medicine for Black physicians, but we don't do anything about retention of Black physicians. And so this to me is my solution towards retention. If I can teach you guys that negotiation is the tool that allows you to create these kinds of jobs where you can actually practice in the conditions that you want just by asking questions, just by asking someone for what you want, then you're much more likely to stay. The career is much more sustainable. You're less likely to burn out. So that's the drive behind this webinar, this program that I created. I really want that for all of you. Negotiation literally has changed my life. I have many clients, this has changed their lives. So, I mean, it's just for me, it's like a super personal thing. It's not just about salary and it's not just about schedule, although those are the primary things that help us get to our other goals. But it is about, your life. It's about your sanity. It's about being able to spend time with family. It's about creating family, creating community, having more time for yourself, having more time for hobbies, for the things that you want to do. And you start by negotiating this work schedule because work really does take up most of our time if we allow it. And if we negotiate differently, that is how we create space for the types of lives that we're trying to live while also still being able to support medicine, still keep our careers, have our jobs. And the other thing is like once you know how to ask, you're going to use it everywhere, right? Knowing how to ask the questions and get what you want is life changing, okay? It is everything. And I say that because I have clients that now use negotiation in their interpersonal relationships with their partners, with their children, to get other parts of their daily job done. The first change is this job. But once you get what you want, which doesn't take long with these tools, you can start getting whatever you want in life. And so that is usually the driver behind getting a lot of these changes in your work contracts is you're not just wanting to work less, you're usually wanting to work less because you want something else. You want to be less tired. You want to be more valued. You want to have time to do the things that you want to do. You want more control. And I would also ask, what is your belief now regarding negotiation being the tool that you need to get what you want? So, just to share a couple extra little stories, one of my first clients was Dr. T, and she's an anesthesiologist, and she was a mid contract, like maybe halfway through like her job contract, and she realized like she's significantly underpaid and she wanted a raise. She liked her job actually. She didn't feel like she needed to change or quit, but she definitely was like, I do need to get paid more. She enjoyed interacting with residents and she felt like there was room for upward mobility and growth, and she still wanted more. So, based on the dream framework and our negotiating framework, we realized that she could reasonably ask for an additional $150,000. Now, for peds, that just sounds like wow. But depending on your specialty, that can very much be a very reasonable ask. So, we went through how to ask. She had that meeting with her department head, and she was able to get an additional $150,000 raise on her base salary. And because she had that conversation, not just about salary, but what she envisioned for herself with her chair, a couple months later, they offered her her dream promotion as well, because communicating is the thing. So it sounds a bit scary to say what you want. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because of all of the subsequent thoughts. As soon as you say, like, I would love to earn more money, I would love to earn an additional $50,000, your brain immediately goes into the reaction mode of, oh my God, that sounds crazy. Don't be unreasonable. People are going to think, and you fill in the blanks with all of the things someone's going to think about you. You start mind reading. They're going to say this, they're going to think that. You have a lot of self doubt. You talk about yourself and you're like, oh, are they going to think I'm worth it? Right. So there is a lot of fear there. What I encourage everyone to do, I encourage my clients, and we talk through this to do is the fear is going to be there and you're still going to do it anyway. It feels like it's worth a try. It can't hurt, right? Right. Like just to ask the question doesn't hurt you. You need to know what the possibilities are. You need to know if they're even going to be willing to do this for you. But yeah, I think the first step is that internal thing of saying what it is you desire. Do you think that I was not afraid when I went to that clinic and I was like, here's all the things that's wrong with your clinic? I was like, these people are going to throw me out the front door. They are going to be like, who is this woman who's been here? I think I'd been there like 7 months at that point, 8 months maybe, that's just coming in our business and telling us all the things we're doing wrong. Like, who does she think she is? That's the conversation I was having in my head. Like, the audacity of you to go in these people's clinic and tell them these things. But in actuality, I thought, well, let's weigh this out because the other alternative is I just walk away and they end up having to find a whole new doctor. This clinic doesn't improve because there is no one to do that portion of it. Patients end up suffering because we're not running it the way it should be run. Like they were way more negative. So although it felt scary to say it and then to actually go to them and say it, it doesn't hurt. It's all about saying the thing. Any other questions or comments that are popping up for you guys? Yeah. So I'm glad that, coming out of this, at least like, I actually can feel like negotiation is like it's worth a try, that it wouldn't hurt to do it. That's exactly what I want for you guys to believe. There's a belief that I want all of you guys to walk away with, and that it's negotiation is the simplest way to change your work and then subsequently your life. And so when I say that, it's like, here are all the ways I showed you guys in the story that these are the ways that negotiation worked for all these people. And so you can start to even imagine, and I can share with you for these clients, like after they got these things, they were able to do all of the things that they had on their bucket lists and stuff. So like making an 150,000 extra dollars, that's someone's whole salary, allows Dr. T to help support her aging parents. Has two children under 5 that she wants to be able to do things for, put them in programs and invest in them in a way and start their 529 plans for college. Like these kinds of things allows you to be more of who you are and to spend your time and your money in a way that supports the person you've always been striving to be. Doctor said, I did request for a pay increase in January via email. I got crickets and I didn't follow up, too scared to follow up. Yeah. So this is you letting, that internal voice of doubt talk you out of it. Because what are you telling yourself, I would say, why they didn't reply to you? And I would say for a lot of clients, it's based on like, they don't want to give me what I want. I might be ruffling feathers. I don't want to seem ungrateful. There's a lot of that internal dialogue that happens, why we decide we're not going to follow up. But they didn't say no to you. So I think it's interesting that, like, probably your worst case scenario is they were going to be like, no, you're fired. And that didn't happen. Oh, so you thought they have too many things to focus on. I'm unimportant. Yeah. There's a moment when you are thinking about negotiation that is heavily based on internal versus external like validation. And so, we're hoping that other people see our worth and other people decide that we're important. And if they decide that, then they will give us what we desire. Then they will, respond to our emails. And this really does confirm that the conversation is internal because if you decide that you want this thing and you decide that you are important and you decide that you need the additional raise, pay increase, then you will follow up. You will do the thing. So there's just a lot of internal belief because they've not even said anything, but you built a story around it that they have too many things going on. I'm not important. I'm too scared to follow this up. Like you have built this entire story and it's all internal to you, right? They haven't said anything. We have no idea what they're actually thinking. And so there's just such an internal process. I teach this is one of the tools that we talk through about what you believe about yourself is how that's what the result is that you get. And so because you're like, I'm unimportant, they probably believe I'm unimportant, you didn't follow up. And that created the result of like, I'm not important enough to get a raise. And so guess what? You didn't get a raise because you didn't press the issue and you didn't follow up. So that's just like this cycle that occurs that we work through that's like here's what your underlying belief is and here's how that manifests into the result you're getting. Then we go through the action belief process, which shows you how do you change the belief so that you get a different result. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the coaching program. So I've talked to you about negotiation. I hope that you guys really do see that it is the tool for getting what you want. I know you guys dropped in the chat the things that you were interested in achieving, which was less admin duties, less time at work, decreasing responsibilities, less administrative burden, more pay. You already know what it is you want. And I think if I've said this 100 times in this webinar, the next move is to ask for it. Like sometimes the internal conversation is really what's inhibiting us from getting the thing that we desire. And it's stopping us from having that external conversation with our chairs, our bosses, our HR departments. And so that's why I created the Any Day Negotiator Group program, right? So it is a 6-month program. We're challenging all of these thoughts that you guys were sharing in the chat. I'm teaching you exactly how to ask for what you want. We're really like changing like everything about how you work. All the things you don't like about your job, we're changing it. And whether that is in your current job, we're making the moves to do that, or we are negotiating in a brand new job and a new contract to set yourself up so that you don't end up in a job that you hate. Because prevention, we always say prevention is what is it? An ounce of prevention is more than a pound of the cure. So prevention is better. When we are creating contracts, new contracts, you're designing it based on what you desire from the onset, which is already protective of you going in to the job. We decide, do you redesign your current role, or are you going to end up looking for a new job that fits? And we go through that. Like, what does that new job need to look like? How do you find that job? When you find that job, how do you communicate to them that these are the things you desire? How do you not talk yourself out of communicating those things? And you're doing it inside of this community because I think community, like we said, sometimes we do need a little validation. We do need a little community sense. We want to hear what other people are asking for. We want to hear what's possible because our brain just needs to know that. We want to see the possibilities because it's just that belief of like, I don't know if what I want exists. This is how you find out if what you want exists, is that you are in a group of people. If I have the desire to help with developing health equity curriculum and or improve DEI practices in the academic setting, but with the political climate, with the budget cuts and the backlash of DEI, any tips on phrasing for requesting this role, especially if it doesn't exist? Ooh, that's a good one. Okay. There's two parts of the question. And the first part of this question is if I want this role, is it going to be valued at my institution? Because I think that's part of the conversation you're having with yourself, right? Like considering the political climate, considering how people are backing out of DEI, considering, budget cuts. is this possible at my institution? So I think that's the first question that you're asking. And then that's an assessment, right? Like, is it even possible at where I am? And if it's possible, what does that look like? So then you would want to ask, I think that's the first question you're actually asking before you get into the how do I create a role that doesn't exist? You want to know if it's even possible for you at your institution. And what do they value? Is your institution part of the crew that's moving away from DEI? Do they find value there? Because before you can make the step of creating the role, you need to know if they are invested in a position like that, what that would look like. Do they have the funds to support it? All of that. So there's a little bit of an assessment process. That would be like that ADA cycle I mentioned that I teach my clients where, we're assessing and figuring out. But I think for you, the first question, the first thing that you're going to find out is whether or not they value this. If they tell you they value it, if there's budget for it. Because listen, they don't value it if there's no money, right? So you want to know if there's a budgetary support for that. And so those are the kinds of questions that you would start asking before you even say, like, how do I pitch myself for this role? Thanks. I'm glad that that was helpful. So I teach you in this program, the NAD Negotiator, how to negotiate, how to get what you want. So, like, for example, if were to join, we would talk about what are the signs that your institution is valuing this thing, how to ask the questions about budget, what other questions you would need to ask to assess that climate of whether or not they could offer this thing to you, and then how do you design that role? Who do you pitch it to? How do you make sure that you're not just agreeing to take on additional responsibilities for no money? Because that is one of the things is like when we see roles like this that we're passionate about, sometimes you can get roped into doing it for free, and we don't do free, right? You need to do compensated roles. You want to have admin time for these kinds of responsibilities. So pitching and framing that actual position, like when I created my medical director position, I was doing 2 clinical days and every other Friday. I switched my Friday to no clinicals to do admin, right? Because I knew I was going to need administrative time to do that. And then I figured, well, if I need additional administrative time, I'm an hourly employee. So I literally charge them by the hour. If I have to do admin time on another day of the week, that's a choice I get to make and I'm compensated for it. You don't end up doing something that you're not compensated for, right? And you don't want to present it in a way that makes it sound like you're volunteering to do additional work for free. So part of this program again is like you're going to leave with more money, more control, more time, more peace. All of these things that you desire, it's all just about asking the questions, making the assessment, making the decision, and just walking through that over and over as you get what you want. So, as I've shared with you, like my clients get results. I have a number of clients who have done everything from adjusting contracts they're in, creating new roles, getting raises, getting promotions, ending contracts early for jobs that don't work for them, creating additional job offers that show them how much money they can earn, show them what the possibilities are. Okay. Because you have no idea what people are negotiating for. Some of this stuff is kind of crazy. I know someone who doesn't have a car and negotiates with her job for Uber rides to work. Like they pay for her Uber. It's in New York City. It's rush hour. Peak pricing, surge pricing. They're paying for that. I know people that negotiate for work visas for their family, that the institution helps their kids get into private schools that are exclusive. Like you have no idea the volume of things that people are asking for jobs. Additional sign-on bonuses, retention bonuses, productivity bonuses, quality metrics bonuses. There's just a lot of money actually in medicine. We don't see the money. And so I think sometimes we disconnect from how much is possible for us, but that's another beauty of being in a program like that. So all of my clients, all of the stories I've shared with you are from early career physicians who have not negotiated successfully before. They're not experts in contract language. They just knew they wanted something else. And so now they all earn more, have more control over their work lives. And except for maybe one person who didn't want to, everyone switched to part-time. My part-time is like my love language. I would say again to you guys, you have already front loaded the effort, the money. You don't have to earn more dues. You don't have to prove to anyone that you deserve that what you want should be earned by you. We do this with every specialty, anesthesia, OB, peds, IM, like whatever specialty it is, like neurodevelopment, all the things, geriatrics. This process works across specialties. It does not matter what your specialty is. It doesn't even matter if you're not a physician, right? It works in dental as well. You let me know if anything's stopping you, if you guys have any questions about negotiation, about the process, about the program. I'm happy to answer that. I hope this was helpful for you and have a good night, everyone.
Okay. Woo. If you are still here, kudos to you. I hope you really can appreciate all of the things that negotiation can do for you. I hope the stories brought that to life. If you heard something that reminded you that you don't need permission to want more, or you don't have to wait until the perfect moment to ask, I'm really excited, right? Remember that this is actually the last episode in our June series, because I'm about to take a real summer break. Like back in the day when you were in elementary school and you got out for all of June and July, that's about to be me. Okay? I'm going to come back in September with new episodes, new stories, more support, all in all to help you build to the life that you want and the career that you want. Okay? To help you get what you want at work. So until then, take care of yourself, rewatch old episodes. And if this series has helped you, send it to a friend or leave a quick review. I'll talk to you soon. Happy summer. We on these streets. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe to the podcast. And what I want you to do next is link us everywhere you can. Instagram at The Black Doctor. Just become part of our collective. I want you here. Thanks. Until next time. Bye.